Hello friends, welcome to our channel Bollygrad Studios. I am Sharifu. In today's video, we are going to talk about why Dwayne Johnson is the greatest action movie star of this generation. Be it Steve McQueen, Clint Eastwood, Jackie Chan, Bruce Willis, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, Will Smith. These are just a few of the many actors who have shed blood, sweat and tears over the years to bring the very best in action-oriented films. You can probably name quite a few more without breaking a sweat, unless, of course, you have mentioned Dwayne Johnson. Humble beginnings. Before you can appreciate someone's current standing, especially the familiar faces and household names of famous movie stars, it helps to know where they came from. Born into a family steeped in the ways of professional wrestling, Johnson's hardworking and theatrical family background played as much of a role in his upbringing as did his black Canadian and Samoan heritage. Though his father Rocky Johnson and his maternal grandfather High Chief Peter Maivia are likely the most famous of John's wrestling relatives, the profession is found throughout his family, so it's little to surprise that his career took him in the same direction. Except that wasn't always the plan for Johnson. After moving all over the world and the United States in his youth, Johnson accepted a full scholarship to play college football at the University of Miami, which landed him on the 1991 co-national championship team. However, after being sidelined by an injury, Johnson's athletic career led him to the Canadian Football League after graduation. Playing for the Calgary Stupendous practice roster, he was cut 2 months into the season. That was a blessing in disguise because it brought Johnson back under the professional wrestling training of his father, who was reluctant at first due to the years of hard work he knew his son would have ahead of him. Johnson wrestled under his own name as well as the stage names of Flex Kavana, Rocky Maivia and finally The Rock. Moving from the amateur events to the pros and from heel to face to the people's champion, it was the experience that not only helped to shape his physique but also gave him the tools to turn the ugly crowd into millions of cheering fans. Those physical and interpersonal skills would have come quite handy as his movie career began to take off. Big break. Thanks to his continuing presence in the WWE and his imposing physical stature, Johnson was hailed by some as the second coming of Schwarzenegger. Guest appearances on some high-profile TV shows like That 70s Show and Star Trek Voyager certainly helped his experience and exposure, but his first big screen break would come in 2001. No, it wasn't the role of a mugger in Lionel C. Martin's Long Shot that launched Johnson's career, but rather the small villainous part of the Scorpion King in Stephen Sommers' The Mummy Returns. That relatively brief role made an impression on the filmmakers, leading Johnson to take on his first lead roles as the very same character in Chuck Russell's underrated action-adventure drama The Scorpion King in 2002. That film did fairly well, but couldn't quite break the 100 million mark at the box office. However, it would be the biggest box office take Johnson would see for one of his films for at least the next 6 years. During that time, Johnson starred in mid-budget action pictures like Peter Berg's action comedy The Rundown, opposite Sean William Scott, Kevin Brass's remake of the crime story action thriller Walking Tall, and Be Cool, a collaboration with current Fast and Furious 8 director F. Gary Gray. However, there were also box office disappointments like the video game adaptation of Doom, the inspirational sports drama Gridiron Gang, and the barely seen action mystery comedy Southland Tales. It wasn't until 2007's family sports drama The Game Plan that Johnson again saw one of his movie gross over $90 million. It was only a year later that Get Smart debuted, and he enjoyed his first substantial role in a feature film that earned over $100 million. That's a milestone. He'd become more and more familiar within the years to come as he began acting in big budget franchises that started busting box offices left and right. It's the success of those cinematic series that cemented Johnson as a bankable action star and allowed him to branch out into other projects. Franchise fandom. After 2010, a year that saw Johnson star in 5 films including a $100 million box office performance for Adam McKay's The Other Guys, Johnson landed a role that would prove to be his most lucrative yet. The Fast and the Furious franchise, one that started with the reboot in 2001, led by big man Vin Diesel, was performing remarkably well at the box office and kept getting bigger if not better every year. But in 2011 saw the arrival of Johnson in Justin Lin's Fast 5 as the imposing Luke Hobbs, a law enforcement agent for the Diplomatic Security Service tasked with tracking down wanted criminals. Criminals like Dominic Toretto and his gang. Whether or not Johnson knew this would be his biggest break yet. But what is very apparent is that he channeled all of his experience over the course of his career into making sure the interaction of Hobbs was unforgettable. That dedication led to one of the best, most intimate action scenes in the entirety of the franchise. Johnson's appearance as Hobbs proved so successful that he became a series regular, now working alongside the team in Fast and Furious 6, Furious 7 and Fast and Furious 8. That success, both critically and commercially, allowed Johnson to appear in other franchise installments like the 2012 sequel Journey to the Mysterious Island and G.I. Joe Retaliation, which each brought in over $100 million. While standalone films like 2010's Faster and 2013's Snitch struggled at the box office, Johnson continued to work with familiar Hollywood names like Michael Bay in Pain and Gain and Brett Ratner in Hercules, a movie he had made while recovering from substantial injury. However, Johnson's biggest film to date that wasn't already a sequel but has possibly spawned a franchise was Brad Pitt's disaster picture San Andreas, which put The Rock front and center as the film's sole action hero, reminiscent of similar picks from the 80s and 90s. This movie may be Johnson's first franchise starter to see him return to a solo role instead of one of the well-muscled cogs in an assembled machine. And while all of this body of work is impressive, it's plain to see that Johnson is just starting to realize his full potential. The sky's the limit. The bulk of Johnson's filmography to date is composed primarily of action films, but he's definitely shown a capacity for comedic work and has enough charisma to pull off some surprisingly dramatic turns. The guy makes it look easy unless you happen to follow his myriad social networking accounts and sync your own alarm up with the rock clock, because then you realize how much time, effort and sweat equity Johnson pours in everything he does. Films as Central Intelligence with Kevin Hart, Disney's family-friendly animated film Mona, the aforementioned new installment in the Fast and Furious franchise, and the R-rated feature reboot of Baywatch shows Johnson clearly likes to keep busy and expand his range as an actor. And yet, there's another professional side to Johnson's career that he's been honing over the last decade or so, that of a producer, having watched action movie stars like Schwarzenegger, Stallone, Willis and others take a relative few steps back from the relentless pace of action-packed movie making as they got older. There are still roles for them, to be sure, just like there will be roles for the 46-year-old Johnson down the road. But the smart move that Johnson has made in recent years is getting involved in more of his own projects as a producer, a role that should last much longer than his heavy lifting, hard-hitting presence on screen ever could. His current producer credits include the HBO Sports dramedy series Ballers, the inspirational documentary Rock and the Hard Place, Rampage, upcoming movies like San Andreas 2 and Shane Black's Doc Savage. But if you think he's scheming in the action movie department, think again. Johnson still has 2 more Journey movies scheduled, in addition to the planned Shazam adaptation, where he would play the villain of the piece, Black Adam. After the likes of Schwarzenegger and Stallone in 80s and 90s, no athletic actors seemed too willing or able to step up to the plate and claim the rank of best action movie star of the 21st century. No one, that is except Dwayne Johnson, whose humble beginnings, commitment to his acting craft and his hard-earned signature physicality has made him the greatest action movie hero of this generation. Enjoy this international treasure while you can, ladies and gentlemen, because like our action movie heroes of yesteryear, even The Rock can't keep this up forever. Enjoy some of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's many roles over the years in the video. That's all in today's video. Hope you liked the video. Do like, share, comment, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Press the bell icon to get more notifications on it.